Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Sean, and today we are talking about Recall. An art copy was provided for review, but the thoughts in this video are all our own.
Recall is a 1 to 4 player game designed by Kristian, Østby, Helge, Meissner, Anna Wermlund, and Kjetil Svendsen. And it is a follow-up to the game Revive. It's a deep strategy game where you are exploring lands and building your engine. Let's take a look at how it plays.
You start the game with a tribe leader, a gadget, 2 objective cards, a couple of key cards, a board full of buildings, a few gems, and a few followers waiting to explore the world. On your turn, you slot one of your key cards into one of your open action spaces and take that action. These will usually include a combination of stuff like gaining gems or followers, exploring, which means flipping tiles on the map, moving your followers around the map, using those followers to grab cubes from the map, mine ability stones, which let you take more free actions, and build various buildings. And these can be further enhanced if you have advanced key cards or if you've upgraded your actions. A lot of this also gets you various bonuses or lets you move up the 3 knowledge tracks, which get you even more bonuses and access to more gadgets and leaders. Instead of playing a key card, you can alternatively take the titular recall action, which means you take back all of your ability stones and your key cards, and then take a bonus on your board for every key card that you recalled. You do all of this over 13 rounds, at the end of which you score points for your place on the knowledge tracks, the ability stones that you collected, vaults that you built, your advanced key cards, cubes that you collected, and points on locations with your monuments, as well as any extra from the bonuses that you chose, a bit for your extra stuff, and an extra 15 points if you completed your objective. And then the leader of the revived world is named.
So that was the overview of how to play, but there is a lot more going on. And one of the things that you didn't get a chance to really dive into are all of the different paths that you can go down, because there'll be various points throughout the game when you'll have to make some choices.
Yeah, there really are. Well, first of all, there's those 2 objective cards that you get at the start of the game, and all of these objectives are hard. So those really drive what you're doing through the game.
Yeah, you will want to focus on them. You can try and just right at the beginning pick which one you want to try and do, or try and go for both, because it's only later in the game that you have to make that choice. But the nice thing is, whichever one you don't take does give you a good bonus.
Yeah, and I like that. I like how many bonuses you're getting from all different stuff in this game. But the other big choice that you have to take, and this happens on a bunch of the different rounds on the round track, is you have to pick one of 2 of the different pairs of scoring conditions. So there's 6 endgame scoring conditions. They both come in pairs of 2 that are randomized. And you're gonna have to pick one of those where you get the extra scoring from that, whatever that is. And between that and the objective, that's gonna be a huge chunk of your points.
Yeah, it will, because all of those objectives will score, but you'll pick the ones that you're already working towards or already doing well at, because there's just no way that you can do everything. And we have found that each game has felt very different.
Yeah, and those scoring choices and the objectives are really just a small part of the paths as well, because really you've always got the same 6 different scoring categories, and you can flip over those cards and they've got slightly different bonus scoring on them. But I think really where the differences in this game come from are those leaders and those gadgets and how those influence your engine.
Yeah, and the leaders, there are 14 different leaders, and they all do feel very different. Some of them have ongoing powers. A lot of them, you'll have to put one of your stones on to use their powers. but their powers might have to do with things like movement, where you can jump over a space or like go from one volcano to another volcano. Other leaders will let you put out tokens. There's one that lets you like build pig farms and put out pigs. Another one where you're putting out like a raft of people. So all of them feel different.
Yeah, and I really liked that pig farmer one that I had in one of the games. I really like the ones that kind of have, like, that take big swings, that have the tokens or that do kind of big game-changing things. But like you said, you have to put a token on a lot of them to use those powers. So you usually use those powers 3, maybe 4 times in a game. But also those gadgets really change things too, and how all of those work together, because those are your free actions that you can kind of combo with everything else. And all of that stuff kind of works with like the different core, like key parts of this game. And I think one of the interesting things with this game is there are so many different key parts, because you've got your followers, you've got your gems, you've got your key cards, you've got the cubes, you've got the like little cases that you're trying to open up, you've got the map, you've got the buildings, you've got the knowledge tracks. And what I really like is often you're kind of focusing on 2 or 3 of those, and you can just ignore some of those. You can't ignore, but you can just ignore some of those in some games, which really makes it feel different.
Yeah, I've had some games where there's been like a specific type of building that I haven't built at all, or even a couple of those types of buildings, and maybe I'm collecting a whole bunch of stones or a whole bunch of cubes. So you can go down very different paths. There'll be a certain amount of basic things that you will want to do, because you'll want to go up those knowledge tracks at least enough to be able to add gadgets and hopefully even be able to unlock the additional leaders, because having access to their powers can be quite beneficial.
Yeah, and I like that part of it too, the kind of pacing of this game, because you begin the game with the 1 leader and the 1 gadget and 2 of the 2 key cards that don't have any bonus actions on. So everything's pretty simple. And then you start to get a couple more key cards that maybe have something on. Then you get 1 more gadget. Then you've got another leader. And then by the end, you've got a lot of things. You've got, 4 different leaders and 4 different gadgets that you've got access to. You probably have like 5 to 8 different key cards with different powers. You've probably upgraded 3 or 4 of those basic actions. So now you can really combo stuff, but it's nice because it just kind of drip feeds you those through the 13 rounds.
Yes, if you had all of that at the beginning, it would be way too
I wouldn't play. I would start and be like, nope.
And so by the end, you can have some like really combo heavy turns that can feel really rewarding, but at least by that point, you're already kind of familiar with most of the things that you have available.
And one of the things that a lot of folks have asked about this game that I've seen come up online is how similar is this to Revive? And I think that's a reasonable question because it's most of the same. I think 3 out of the 4 are the same design team. And I think it is stated to be the sequel to that. You can see that it's in kind of the same world, and you can definitely see a lot of the same DNA. But I really thought that this was quite a different game, more different than I expected it to be.
It is a very different game, and I think one of the key differences I notice is this just feels more streamlined. For this, the main resources you have are crystals and then your followers that you're putting out. Whereas Revive, I think, had the 3 different resource tracks that you were managing. And it just felt a little bit more abstracted, and it just felt like almost like a step removed from like what you're actually doing.
Yeah, I really like Revive. I think that is a terrific game. But this, I think, while it still has that, like the key cards work a little bit like the cards that you're sliding them in, you're taking, usually they've got a bonus, plus you're taking the stuff in the action. You've got that shared board that has kind of the hexes that you're moving around and you're building stuff and you've got leaders. So on paper, that all sounds kind of similar, but you're really using those very differently. And I find everything in here, like you said, feels more like kind of direct.
Yeah, and for me, I think one of the key ways that looks as well is with the scoring, because in Revive, one of the core end of game scoring has to do with your scoring card that you get at the beginning, where each of the different like colored brains or artifacts, whatever they were, tied to something. Whereas this is just very clear. It's like, oh, how many of these types of buildings do you have? How many of these stones do you have collected?
Yeah, I like that. I like that you know the main categories, and they're pretty obvious. Like, they're going to tie it to obvious stuff that you're going to do anyway. So I would say that if you liked Revive, I think you're definitely going to like this. I don't see any way that someone who liked Revive doesn't like this game. If you didn't like Revive, I still think there is a chance that you might like this.
Yeah, I think it would depend on why you didn't like Revive. So I think there certainly is an audience of people who would like Recall who didn't quite get a lot out of Revive. But for Revive, if you felt like there was a lot of combos and there was kind of a lot of thinking that you had to do and you couldn't get everything done, that's still present here.
Yeah, and I think in a good way. Yeah. I want that in a game like this, and yeah, very much that's in this game. We should also talk about the components in this game because I think they're really nice. I really like the boards and that double layer board, but they use it in an interesting way where both you're putting things into that top layer like usual. That's kind of cut out, holds things really nicely, but also you're using that to slide those keys under. And I love that. I hate when you have to put cards under a board and they get like jammed. You got to kind of lift the board, and I hate that. So this is such a terrific solution.
Yeah, it's very satisfying to slide your keys in, and everything has a space. Like the gadgets slot in very nicely. You've got a spot for your leader card. And I think when it feels like there's a lot going on, it's really helpful to have everything nicely laid out and have a spot. And I think the main board works really well. My one complaint would be how large it is, because we have a decent sized table and this like barely fits on it.
The other slight iffy is, even though I did just say that it has a bit more connection to the theme than Revive, it still isn't all that connected to the theme. I think it's kind of a post-apocalyptic-ish thing, but it does feel like, you know, like you're building and like you're putting out stuff, and I do feel involved and like connected. It doesn't feel totally abstract, but I couldn't really also tell you what it is. I can just tell you I'm not building a cathedral, and I'm very glad that it's like a little bit different at least.
Yeah, there isn't much of a theme. I do appreciate though how language independent it is. So there isn't like I don't think there is any written text.
No, I don't think so.
And it does a really good job with the iconography. I think it took us like one game to get most of it under our belts. There's maybe the odd leader that we hadn't seen before or something that we just have to look up, but we're not finding ourselves going back to the rule book again and again.
Yeah, and I think part of that as well is that this is a fairly streamlined game. This is like a heavy game, a heavy puzzle, very thinky, but for actually teaching this game, it's not that difficult. And part of that is that everything fits together and it just kind of works how you expect. And I think it just kind of flows nicely together. But even though I do think this is fairly easy to kind of teach and understand, it is pretty hard to play well.
Yeah, it is hard to master, and it is a very thinky game. And we do find that there are probably a few turns a game that can be really long.
Yeah, there are definitely times when you've kind of, after you've recalled and you've got like the world is your oyster and everything is available, you can really make some combos, and we can have turns that take us like 10-ish minutes on occasion. You only get like 3 of those in a game, but you might have some big turns, and if you're playing against that person, often, most of the time in this, I feel like I'm spending that time thinking about what I'm going to do, and I'm kind of glad that you're taking a few minutes. But some of those times I'm like, I should go grab a book.
And I think that will influence the player count as well. Because if you're playing with more players, there's going to be even longer before it comes back to your turn. So if it's one of those times where every person is having a long turn before it comes back to you, I think just be ready for that.
Yeah, because there isn't a ton of interaction in this game. There are the main things really are rushing for the stuff on that map. Well, the main things, that's kind of the thing, is rushing for that stuff on that map. And it's interesting because you don't add more stuff with more players. So at 2 players, you just have access to more. You've got less people going for different things, less people challenging you at all those different spots. And so you're going to be able to get a lot more cubes. You're going to be able to, importantly, get more of those little action disc things, which let you set up those combos because you can do all that stuff that's on your board. So I do think this game's going to play quite a bit different and be a lot tighter with more people.
Yeah, I would imagine that one would get the highest scores at 2 players compared to 4 players. But if you are someone who does like playing thinky Euro games at a high player count, there is the interactive map. You will have to like spend more followers to build where other people are building, and at more players that's going to be more likely to happen. It is a tighter game, but I think some people would like that challenge if they're okay with the longer time. So that brings us to final thoughts, and this is a game that I was very much anticipating. It was on my most anticipated list for Essen, and it's because I'm a big fan of Revive. So I had high expectations for it, and I really like it.
Yeah, I didn't have as high expectations. I really like Revive, but it wasn't in my top 100. I know it was in your top 100. It was just outside for me, but I wasn't sure. And this game I really like. This is one that I would be shocked if this didn't end up in our top 5 of the year.
Yeah, and I think it's the fact that it's just so much more streamlined than Revive. It is a very thinky, engine-building combo game where there are a lot of different paths, and it feels different so far every time we've played it.
Yeah, I really like that. Just how many different like little areas there are, how many ways you can set up your combos. Because I had one game where I went through like 20 of those like crate boxes, and that felt really weird because I was just getting all this random stuff. Most of the time it was really good random stuff, but it felt so different from other games that I had played where I was maybe focusing on the key cards or getting a bunch of those cubes, and everything was a bit more in my control. And I like that I could have those different experiences.
And I do think it works really well at 2 players. It's not going to be quite as tight as it is at more players, which I'm okay with. If you regularly play heavy games at a higher player count, there is still like the shared map and interaction with getting all of that stuff, but it will just take longer.
And I really like how smooth this game is, because we keep saying like it is a thinky game, it is a heavy game, but it is also a fairly accessible game to get into. It's just gonna take you some doing to like think about everything, but to actually like grok the overall rules, I don't think is too difficult.
And this is one where I'm still excited to play and discover like new combos and new pathways and try different directions and try different leaders as well. So I think we're going to be playing this a lot more.
And that is it. Have you played Recall? What did you think? And what are some of the other big heavy games that came out this year that you are excited about?
Thank you so much for watching. And as usual, please like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.